You're in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Right,
this is just this
No,
is. I think this is a pretty amazing thing.
It is amazing.
Indeed, Hugh Jackman has the Guinness World Records certificate that marks his 16-year Wolverine career. He was the only character and actor to appear in all 7 chapters of the X-Men series.
What is it now? You're the longest running live action Marvel superhero?
From Australia, over 6'2".
The role of Wolverine was fateful for Jackman. We wonder how the actor, rightfully titled as the nicest guy in Hollywood, was so brilliantly natural in portraying someone with berserker rages.
I remember my son having a friend come over. He was about 13.
Yeah.
And the guy was peppering him with Wolverine questions over and there was, my son was saying nothing. And I'm in the room next door and finally I hear this, listen, my dad is nothing like Wolverine. He is not tough. He's not cool. Don't ask me any more about it, right?
However, Hugh Jackman, just like his screen character, also has a long and convoluted history of dealing with anger. Its roots date back to one dramatic event that occurred in the actor's childhood. What's made the Oscar nominee feel furious for years? How did he go from a lost and frightened boy to an A-list actor? Which influence does his childhood drama have on his own family? Stay with us to discover the greatest showman's secrets and subscribe to Rumour Juice YouTube channel to learn more about your favorite celebrities. Hugh Jackman was born to English parents in Sydney, Australia. He was raised in a very strict household. He was the youngest of 5 children. When Hugh was only 8 years old, his mother left the family and moved back to England. 5 years later, Jackman's father went to England as well, hoping to reunite with his mother. By this point, she was married to someone else, with a kid, Jackman told The Hollywood Reporter. It was really complicated, so when Dad arrived back, not 3 weeks later as planned, but 5 days later, I just knew. I was old enough to go, this is not happening. Unfortunately, it was happening. Young Hugh Jackman and his 4 siblings were abandoned by their mother. She might have had her reasons for such a choice, but it was a blow for Hugh. He once said that from the moment his mom left, he was just a fearful kid who felt furious but powerless. From there on, Hugh was desperately seeking ways to release his anger. He used to headbutt the lockers at school until there was a dent in them. He was playing rugby and getting into wild fights during the game, perceiving it as something that would let his rage come out. I was volatile. My anger didn't really surface until I was 12 or 13. Also, the actor revealed to Parade back in 2015 that he was scared of the dark. Hugh couldn't even walk inside his house if he knew he would be alone there in the dark, so he waited outside until someone else would come. Sadly, young Hugh was usually the first person to return home, and such an unpleasant scenario was frequent. It limited me, I hated it, and that contributed to my anger. Isn't most anger fear-based ultimately? It emanates from some kind of powerlessness. I was really feeling that. However, the situation got better as the future actor was growing up. In high school, Jackman thrived, playing sports, starring in the play, and getting good grades. He was good at many things, but there was one situation that impressed him and partially determined his further choice of profession. As his family was very religious, they would often go to revival meetings. During one of them, Jackman was deeply impressed by the preacher's speech.
I remember looking up at this minister, I think he's called a minister, he was up on stage having a very, very strong sense that I would one day be up on a stage in front of a lot of people. Like, not, oh, I would like to be, just knowing that would happen.
However, he considered being on stage in general, and not necessarily as an actor. There's a lot of other speech-delivering professions, right?
Did you think maybe you were going to be a preacher?
Yeah, at the time I thought, well, maybe it's a preacher or something like that. Just a slightly different religion, like comic books, but that's, you know.
After graduating high school, Jackman decided to take a gap year to travel and work. He ended up living in England at the age of 18, teaching physical education and coaching sports teams in a prestigious college. Part of his duties also included lecturing English and drama for freshmen, only a few years younger than himself. He was also working the night shift at a gas station and having some part-time clown jobs at children's parties. Once a 6-year-old called him a terrible clown because he didn't know any tricks. Jackman admitted the kid was absolutely right, but he had no idea yet which profession would fit him. Hugh came back to Australia and started studying communications at the University of Technology in Sydney. Back then, his main goal was to become an international freelance journalist. During his final year at the university, Hugh needed a few extra credits to graduate. He wound up joining the drama class because he heard it was easy to pass. Little did he know this class would put him on a path of pursuing acting professionally. A teacher gave him the lead, but Jackman hesitated. I begged my teacher. I said, I'm in my finals, I can't do this play. But I loved it. Have you ever had that feeling where you found your people, your tribe? In that week, I felt more at home with those people than I did the entire 3 years at university. He had done some amateur theater on the side, but it was just a hobby. Jackman never thought he could make a living out of acting, but he decided to give it a try. He graduated university in 1991 and shortly after started studying the art of acting. In the meantime, Hugh was working at a gym. He was not a trainer but a receptionist this time. There was another situation that kind of prejudiced his fate. One day, Annie Simler, the wife of Academy Award-winning cinematographer Dean Simler, approached Jackman at the reception desk. After staring for a few moments at the future celebrity, she announced, "You're going to be a big star. Don't worry, it's all going to happen so fast. Listen to me, I'm a white witch." Not long after, he was offered a role in the famous Australian soap opera Neighbours. The show was a launching pad for many future stars, including Kylie Minogue, Russell Crowe, Guy Pearce, Margot Robbie, and Chris and Liam Hemsworth. It seemed like Jackman's possible big break, but he turned it down in favor of continuing his drama education. "I wanted to continue my studies because I'd learned just enough to know how little I knew." Unlike some starlets who agree on the very first tempting offer, Jackman decided to consolidate his knowledge and get into the methodology. Well, apparently he didn't miss anything out. Hugh's time at the acting school was tough, but he loved it. He was immersed in all aspects of training, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. When the interviewer of Parade asked the Oscar nominee what the best thing about his newfound passion in acting was, he answered, "Peace. There are things driving me that aren't all healthy. Needing approval and respect to fill some hole who knows where in me. Am I worthy? All those fears. Through acting, I'm able to find a level of bliss and peace and calm and joy, and it feels natural." Jackman's talent, drive, and charisma made him one of the school's most promising graduates. The same night he finished his last final school performance in 1995, Hugh got a call. He was offered a role in an Australian TV crime drama called Corelli. Though the series was ultimately a failure, it was a life-changing experience for Jackman. He was cast opposite established actress Deborah Lee Furness. Jackman was terrified when he realized he had a crush on the star of the show. He didn't want his feelings to influence his very first acting job, and he was also scared that Furness would perceive him as a young little puppy. "I didn't talk to her for a week. Finally, she said, 'Have I done something to annoy you?' I said, 'Look, I've got a crush on you. I'm sorry.' And she said, 'Oh, I've got a crush on you too.' And that was 20 years ago. Jackman wanted to marry her immediately, despite being so young. He was in his early 20s when they met, and Furness was 13 years older.
And I have become infinitely more confident, infinitely, I think, braver and more within myself from being with Deb. I've learned a lot from Deb.
The couple tied the knot a year later. They've been married ever since. Unfortunately, Jackman and Furness were unable to have kids. They tried in vitro fertilization, but it didn't help either. So the spouses decided to adopt 2 children, Oscar and Ava.
We always wanted to adopt. I don't know how it came up. Deb and I were always like, we want to have kids. And because of her age, we started straight away when we were together. But we were always going to adopt as well.
Jackman and Furness's motivation behind adoption was based on the question, where is the need? They knew that the most significant need was amid mixed-race kids, and their initial idea was to help the kids to fit in whatever community they end up being part of. Besides, Hugh was very familiar with the feeling of abandonment, and he wanted to keep children left by their biological parents to overcome the hard feelings. However, since Oscar and Ava have grown up in a life of privilege, Jackman admits that he's strict with his children. He's teaching them the lessons of respect and gratitude. I say, unfortunately, I'm going to be tougher on you than I would be if I wasn't famous, because people are actually going to be less tough on you in life.
Not okay.
So the 51-year-old is playing bad cop when he needs to, but still thinks he's more flexible than his dad was. Unlike his children, who can always find support in their thoughtful mother, Hugh was only familiar with his father's strict way of upbringing. Even though the actor reunited with his mother years later, and they seem to be in a good relationship now, he still recalls his childhood trauma and suffers from its consequences. On the other hand, the tragedy has its perks. Jackman confesses that his famous Wolverine rage comes straight from all the anxious feelings he experienced because of the absence of a mother figure in his life. He developed it and used it for his performance as the character. Whether being driven by rage as Wolverine, getting emotional in Les Miserables, or showing off his dance moves in The Greatest Showman, Jackman nails it all so brilliantly. He has gone a long way from a lost boy to a movie star. He has remained strong and faithful to his principles. He has transformed his pain into the work material. He has saved 2 beautiful kids from the destructive feeling of abandonment that he had experienced for years. Don't you think he's even more than Hollywood's nicest guy?